Cynthia and Nyamai. Now, we have been following up for you the finance bill, and today the Kenya Kwanza team did pull a fast one and passed the finance bill 2004. In business, we do have for you the young and the industrious and sports action that will come up shortly. We have many stories for you, some that even you have told us about, and we decided to follow up for you. But first, let's have the highlights.
Ayes 204, nays 115, abstentions nil. So the ayes have it.
Government scores in the first round as 204 MPs vote in favor of the contentious Finance Bill 2024. Generation Z engages police in running battles in Nairobi and across the counties in a push for the tax bill rejection. And President Ruto roots for the passage of money bill as the National Treasury explains to Parliament the consequences of the bill rejection. Brian Muraru is our sign language interpreter for tonight. And remember, we would love to hear from you. You can send us your comments and feedback and even suggestions for stories that you would like us to cover. And you can send them on our social media pages. That is KBC Channel 1 on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Now, the National Treasury is warning MPs against rejecting revenue-raising measures contained in the Finance Bill 2024. In a letter to the office of the Clerk of the National Assembly, Treasury says failure to approve the Finance Bill as it is will create a fiscal deficit of at least 200 billion shillings and will trigger major budget cuts, adversely affecting key projects to be financed by the budget.
The National Treasury's letter to the National Assembly advising against rejecting revenue-raising measures as contained in the Finance Bill 2024 elicited objection from the minority side.
First and foremost, the Cabinet Secretary is treading on very slippery grounds and indeed dangerous grounds. First, by purporting to direct the House on what it's supposed to do in its legislative role. Two, is also anticipating debate, because as far as I'm aware, we are still at the stage of debating this bill. So what I want to ask you, Honorable Speaker, first and foremost, is to call the CS to order. To order from your chair. He cannot be seen to be supervising this House. In other words, actually he's trying to put pressure on this House to act in a particular manner.
The leader of minority, Opiyo Wandayi, while demanding the advisory be withdrawn, said the imbalance in the budget can be addressed through a supplementary budget, a plea that was dismissed by the leader of majority, Kimani Ichung'wa.
Are they saying that they were unable to look for money to finance the budget that we passed last week? If so, the logical thing, Honorable Speaker, is to do a supplementary budget.
But we cannot say that at this point what we should be doing is a supplementary budget. What shall we be supplementing if we are even yet to pass the appropriations bill? We need to pass the appropriations bill and the finance bill so that we complete the budget-making cycle.
According to Treasury, rejection of the proposed revenue-raising measures would cause a fiscal deficit of 200 billion shillings. Among the budget cuts to be undertaken, should the bill fail, include Constituency Development Fund to be reduced by 15 billion shillings, fertilizer subsidy will be reduced by 5 billion shillings, road projects will be cut by 15.1 billion shillings, irrigation projects 1 billion shillings, ICT Authority to lose 6.7 billion shillings, cash transfer program will be reduced by 5.5 billion shillings, last mile connectivity to be reduced by 7 billion shillings, among an array of cuts.
If we are to reduce the proposed revenue estimates, Honorable Speaker, then concurrently, and I said it on Tuesday, something must give in.
The leader of majority, while defending the Treasury's position, said the House must strike a balance between the supply of monies it appropriates and ways and means of financing such expenditures. Gishoki Washira, Prime Edition.
Now, the Kenya Kwanza team on Thursday pulled a fast one and passed the Finance Bill 2024 with 204 votes against a spirited opposition which managed only 115 votes. The passage of the bill followed an intense debate, with the opposition side claiming that the bill will burden Kenyans and should be rejected in totality, with the government side warning that the bill had accommodated all the views of Kenyans and was the best bet for the time. The bill now moves to the committee stage where members can propose amendments. Tito Marco reports.
The debate on the Finance Bill 2024 continued during the special sitting of the National Assembly held on Thursday morning and then during the normal sitting in the afternoon. The majority side asserting their reasons as to why the bill needed to be passed, claiming it will significantly improve the Kenyan economy.
This budget, Mr. Speaker, it promises the people of Berno that we will be connected with power.
The conversation on our country is no longer about our communities. It is about of how to grow our economy and our country.
Those on the minority side, on the other hand, trying as much as they could to justify their rejection of the bill, saying it's going against the spirit of living within our means and was burdening the already struggling Kenyans.
This bill is obnoxious, is diabolical. This bill is budget and choking to the lives of Kenyans.
We need to tighten our belts, we need to live within our means, and we need to address corruption.
All these as chaotic scenes were witnessed outside Parliament buildings along the streets of Nairobi City as young people engaged police in running battles. After a short debate on the bill during the afternoon sitting, the moment of reckoning came. The opposition even pushing a division, forcing the vote to be taken as per constituency. At the end of the voting at around 40 minutes past 5 p.m., the results were out.
Ayes 204, nays 115, abstentions nil. So the ayes have it.
The government emerging with a resounding win, thrashing the opposition with 204 against 115 votes. The National Assembly will now hold a special sitting on Tuesday morning to consider any amendments to the bill through Committee of the Whole House. The legislators had until Thursday at 1 p.m. to present any changes they would wish to have in the bill. Tilio Marco for Prime Edition.
The streets of Nairobi were on Thursday turned into a theatre of wits and might as youths engaged police in running battles over the Finance Bill 2024. The protesters had for the second time this week attempted to stage a march to Parliament to compel lawmakers to shoot down their contentious bill. Police barricaded all roads leading to Parliament, lobbied tear gas at the charged crowd and arrested dozens of demonstrators. Giverson Minor has a story for you.
For the second time this week, Generation Z has dared police. Anti-Finance Bill chants rented the air in Nairobi on Thursday. Then tear gas, water-throwing cannons and running battles dominated the central business district for the major part of the day. As police tried to contain the protesters, who showed up in large numbers, their clarion call was on MPs to reject the Finance Bill 2024 in its entirety. They decreed proposed taxes on sanitary towels, diapers, and digital platforms, among others, saying life would be completely unbearable as the majority of them, including graduates, have no jobs.
How can you tax pads We are living in an African country where 65% of women can't go to school because of periods.
They are saying a 25-year-old person staying with a parent to pay tax. Which tax?
Others felt they were overtaxed and there was little to show for it due to theft of public coffers.
You know, we don't need the finance bill. We have the Finance Act 2023. All they need to do is to manage our funds. That's the only thing they need to do. They said they are going to provide good health care, good education system. They are going to create jobs. There is 2 years. They passed Finance Bill 2023. What have they done with that? Before we do Finance 2024, what have they done with 2023?
But their plan to deliver their petition to Parliament was thwarted by police, causing an up and down battles for hours. Armed with their smartphones, they recorded and live-streamed the confrontations on their social media platforms.
For the better part of the day, the young protesters have been attempting to access the Parliament buildings. However, police have successfully managed to block them.
They have resorted to occupying Nairobi's major streets, including Kenyatta Avenue, and completely blocked traffic to convey their displeasure on proposed taxes. Give us minor Prime Edition.
Meanwhile, thousands of protesters identifying as Generation Z or Gen Z mobilized under the hashtag Reject Finance Bill 2024 took to the streets of various towns across the country in solidarity with their peers in Nairobi County.
From Kisumu to Mombasa, Generation Z or Gen Z mobilized, picketed peacefully to draw attention to their reservations about the proposed finance law. In Eldoret town, the demos were as loud and dramatic as could be. Sentiments expressed by demonstrators in Kericho town.
In totality, wametoa motor vehicle tax, lakini road maintenance levy imepanda na 39%. Iyo ni nini?
In Kiambu County, the call was the same for members of parliament to shoot down the bill.
And ya hii finance bill 2024. Tunataka hii finance bill iondolewe kabisa. Kwa sababu hata ile ambayo walipitisha last year bado inatukandamiza.
For Gen Zs in Kirinyaga, Nyeri counties, their concerns were well illustrated on placards.
And we want the government and the parliament to come up with a finance bill that takes care of the concerns of the people.
Similar scenes were replicated in Meru County, where protests were also peaceful, with security officers patrolling the streets. Youths in Machakos County were not left out. Central Kenya Youth Association, Laikipia Nyandarua branch, joined other young Kenyans across the country in protest.
Tuma mtu aende apige kura ya yes. Tulituma Wasira Kalani na wabunge wengine wote wa Laikipia waende wa vote no.
In Mombasa County, peaceful demonstrators were confronted by riot police with reports indicating that tear gas canisters were hurled at a school. Kasichana Masha.
Seeing our police officers in Kenya, particularly in Mombasa, and it is so sad, subjecting peaceful demonstrators to tear gas and unlawful arrest. We have even seen some tear gas being poured to one of our schools in Mombasa, the Coast Girls.
Prime Edition.
President William Ruto is calling on the members of parliament to pass the 2024 finance bill. Speaking in Garissa County, President Ruto assured the residents that the government had allocated 18 billion to the education sector that would be used to employ over 20,000 teachers, including interns, on permanent and on pensionable terms.
Education sector.
In a rallying call in Garissa County, President William Ruto assured the residents of the importance of passing the 2024 finance bill as it will enable employment of more teachers in the region.
Katika budget ya mwaka huu, nimeweka bilioni 18 ya kuajiri waalimu wengine 20,000 hasa katika Northern Kenya, ndio watoto wa Northern Kenya wapate nafasi ya kusoma. Wale waalimu tuliwaajiri 2 years ago kama intern teachers. Mimi nataka niwahakikishie katika budget hii tumeweka bilioni 18 ya kutransit. Wale waalimu walikuwa interns sasa watakuwa employed on permanent and pensionable terms. Na ndio mimi nataka niwaambie wabunge wetu wakiwa kule bunge, tunataka wapitishe pesa ya watoto wa Kenya wasome.
The president further noted of allocation in the finance bill to be used in electrification.
Hapa Garissa munahitaji stima, tumeweka bilioni 2, wapitishe hiyo bilioni 2 tukuje tuunganishe stima ya Garissa County. Hapa Garissa Town tunataka kujenga soko kubwa ya kusaidia kina mama mboga hapa.
The president would later attend a graduation in Garissa University.
To rise and join me in a moment of silence to remember, appreciate and honor the innocent young Kenyans who died here.
Where he hailed the institution for rising above its challenges after the 2015 terror attacks. Acknowledging the milestones achieved, he further called for the need for economic transformation, affordable housing and community health promoters.
I am very proud that the first 800 units of our affordable housing program have been started in Garissa County, and the other 4,000 units are at the design stage that will be launched in the coming months. Garissa County has already provided 2,000 community health promoters, and working with the national government, we are rolling out the exercise that will make it possible for every citizen in Kenya to access health care and to benefit from our universal health coverage plan.
Education CS Ezekiel Machogo called on all eligible students to apply for help loan as Defense CS Eden Duale assured the President of Security in the region.
Following the opening of the higher education funding portal on 18th of this month, 2024, I wish to encourage all eligible students who have been placed to various universities and our TVET institutions for the 2024-2025 academic year to take advantage of the opportunity to apply for loans and scholarships under the student-centered funding model.
We will not give an opportunity to the forces of terror and evil to come near our citizens and more so near our universities and colleges.
Serafina Robi for Prime Edition.
The government has set aside $943 million, that's around 121.6 billion shillings, to resettle more than 700,000 refugees and asylum seekers in integrated settlement facilities. Speaking during the commemoration of World Refugee Day, Immigration Principal Secretary Hilary Bitok announced a 4-year fast phase plan that will bring on board different stakeholders to ensure the social economic well-being of refugees is catered for.
During celebrations to mark World Refugee Day, various leaders voiced their concerns on the well-being of refugees and asylum seekers. In Nairobi County, Immigration Principal Secretary Julius Bitok unveiled the Shirika Plan, an initiative set to aid the transition of refugees and asylum seekers from camps to integrated settlement facilities.
We've been engaging with the UNHCR and all stakeholders for the last 1 year to ensure that we have a robust plan to ensure that we implement the new policy and ensure that refugees have an opportunity to be self-reliant.
There should be some imperative balance when it comes to resource sharing, in terms of employment and many other things.
Bitok emphasized the importance of improving living conditions for refugees and enhancing the economical contributions to host communities.
Shirika Plan, of course, is a very innovative plan to ensure that the refugees and host communities are able to live together in harmony, ensure that they enjoy all the services together, they are able to get all opportunities, whether it is education, whether it is housing.
This is an incredibly ambitious plan to transform the lives not just of refugees, but of the host communities in the parts of the country that they share.
The Shirika Plan envisions 6 key components, including systems building and enabling policy frameworks, integrated services such as health and education, and durable solutions and complementary pathways, among other components. The plan set to be launched in November will result in redesigning of refugee camps in Garissa and Turkana counties into municipalities. At the same time, Africa International University Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs and Research, Joseph Kiplangat, has called for seamless integration of refugees and asylum seekers.
So ours is really to watch the concerned, ministries through the Treasury and other partners to really work closely with the partners and also the World Bank to ensure that we safeguard, the rights of refugees.
World Refugee Day is celebrated annually on the 20th of June. John Kahiro, Prime Edition.
Water services providers are being challenged to rein in on widespread use of non-revenue water resources that would be a huge source of revenue if regulated. Water, Sanitation and Irrigation Cabinet Secretary Zachariah Njeru, while presiding over the launch of the Water Services Regulatory Board Strategic Plan, lauded the significant strides the board has made in provision of the essential commodity to Kenyans. Njeru, however, challenged the providers to capitalize on tariffs as the most reliable source of revenue.
To celebrate its 20th anniversary, the Water Services Regulatory Board launched its Impact Report issue number 16, as well as the 2023-2027 Strategic Plan. According to the Impact Report, water coverage has gone up from 60% in 2021 to 65% currently. Drinking water quality has, however, witnessed a decrease from 92% to 90% over the same period. Water, Sanitation and Irrigation Cabinet Secretary Zachariah Njeru is calling on the service providers to regulate use of non-revenue water sources.
On water losses, apart from the potential monetary loss of more than 10.2 billion Kenyan shillings annually, the loss places a huge burden on consumers through high consumer bills.
Njeru at the same time lauded development partners for their role in closing the development gap for finance, even as he challenged the providers to strive for self-efficacy.
And achieving this can be accomplished by enhancing both technical and financial efficiency, making them creditworthy and eligible for blended financing. We'll agree that the most reliable source of revenue is the tariff. To this end, I urge the county governments to support the utilities in reviewing tariffs while ensuring accountability for their resources.
According to the strategic plan, the board will, among others, implement resource mobilization strategies, enhance enforcement through imposition of penalties for non-payment of regulatory levy, engage development partners to finance select strategic initiatives, and include regulatory levy payment in the criteria for endorsement of water service providers for development partner programs.
We intend to ensure realization of the right to water services, to strengthen public accountability in water service provision, to streamline water service provision in rural and underserved areas.
The government is further seeking to increase the number of households accessing the water services by at least 350,000 households annually. Yusufa reporting for Prime Edition.
More than 3,000 delegates are expected to flock Diani in the next couple of days. I will be telling you why and the opportunities for you in blue economy. That and more coming up shortly after the break.
We asked the children, how many of you brushed this morning? And this little boy, his hand didn't go up. And I said, well, why didn't you brush this morning? He said, my brother was using the toothbrush. If I'd waited for him, I would have been late for school. I'm sorry, I get a bit emotional when it comes to that. To be able to change a child's life, to be able to bring back that confidence about their smile, for me, is phenomenal.
Unajua, token mita yako inahitaji system update. Ni rahisi na ni free. Ukipata ujumbe kutoka Kenya Power, yani SMS. Weka kodi ya kwanza kureset, alafu weke kodi ya pili kuupdate ili token mita yako iendelee kufanya kazi kama kawaida. Update token mita yako. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na Kenya Power and Lighting Company.
Nilianza kuendesha boda miaka michache iliyopita ili kuhudumia familia yangu. Sio kazi rahisi, lakini inaweka chakula mezani. Wakati huo nilifikiria siwezi kushindwa. Ningeendesha boda kwa kasi, kukwepa na kuvuka barabara ovyo ovyo. Ningefanya chochote ili kufika napokwenda haraka. Lakini siku moja nilikuwa hospitalini kwa miezi 3. Kosa moja karibu liondoe kila kitu. Mwaka moja baada ya kutoka hospitalini, nilihudhuria mafunzo ya jinsi ya kuendesha boda kwa usalama. Boda ni life, lakini life si kitu bila usalama. Zingatia kanuni za trafiki. Hakikisha unavaa helmet na reflector jacket wakati wote.
Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na NTSA kwa ushirikiano na European Union.
Kikohozi cha muda wowote, kutokwa na jasho kwa wingi usiku, uchungu kwenye kifua, afya kudhoofika, tafuta matibabu. Labda ni TB ni ugonjwa wa kweli. Ukipimwa matibabu yapo utapona. Daktari kushauri tumia dawa kwa nidhamu. Elimu tupashane tupige vita TB. Mwa TB waishi poa.
Asanteni sana kwa kuwezesha Loto Moto kuwafikia wengi wasiojiweza kupitia *570#. Hapo umewafuta wengi machozi, umewaelimisha, umewapa makao, umewapa lishe na umewapa matibabu kwa namna tofauti. Asanteni.
Asanteni. Asanteni sana.
Na kwako wewe mchezaji wa Loto Moto, unajipa fursa ya kujishindia Probox nayo. Na kama Probox haikufai na umejishindia, tunakupa taslim 750,000 Kenyan shillings na mshindi na mtangaza 30th of June. Na mwezi wa July 28th na mtangaza mshindi wa Demio nayo. Na kama utaki na umeshinda, wacha gari, chukua chapa 750,000 Kenyan shillings kwenye *570#. Wewe si mshindi tu, wewe ni tegemeo kubwa. Tusaidie na tushinde!
Welcome back. It's now time for business. The Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, has given the nod for the establishment of joint national county government teams that will see petroleum and gas refilling facilities built away from residential and populated areas. EPRA Director General Daniel Kipto says that the county teams will take up inspection roles to ensure that the regulations are followed and staff qualifications of safety and operations of the facilities.
In April this year, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority revealed that 34.7% of cooking gas storage and filling stations failed to meet the required standards, including those relating to safety, maintenance, risk management, and emergency preparedness. To that end, the regulator embarked on routine compliance tests on liquid petroleum gas and petrol station businesses around the country. And now it has given the go-ahead to teams that will now help implement the zoning of LPG and petroleum facilities and oversee surveillance and enforcement activities. In a statement, EPRA Director General Daniel Kipto said, and I quote, "We ask county governments to collaborate with us in coming up with clear guidelines on exclusive zoning and reservation of land for setting up new petroleum and gas facilities away from densely populated areas." End of quote. During the period under review, IPRA undertook 840 inspections on wholesale and retail sites, which recorded a compliance level of 51.96%. 54 bulk LPG road tankers with a compliance level of 82.07%, and 18 LPG storage and filling plants with a compliance level of 65.3%. To improve these numbers, IPRA additionally wants counties to identify land within the counties for tanker parking yards to stop drivers from parking in residential areas, the roadside, and petrol stations during transit. In February, a gas explosion killed several people, including more than 200 others in Nairobi's Mradi village. Alan Oko, Prime Edition.
Thank you, Alan, for that report. The Agriculture Finance Corporation is seeking 20 billion shillings capital injection from development partners for onward lending to farmers. AFC Managing Director George Kubai says the organization is planning to mobilize funds in the next 5 years to ease credit access to small-scale farmers.
The Agriculture Finance Corporation says it has a 15 billion shillings annual funding gap as more farmers seek affordable credit. The lender is planning to increase its asset base from the current 13 billion shillings to 80 billion shillings in the next 5 years as part of plans to increase its loan book. The lender is planning to raise 20 billion shillings from development partners for onward lending to farmers.
Commitment by the government to fund us the tune of around 15 billion. Basically, we are looking into more than 20 billion from our development partners to basically address the gap.
AFC, in its 5-year strategic plan, seeks to change its financing model that will see it lend to cooperatives for onward lending to small-scale farmers to minimize non-performing loans.
We want to make sure that we are able to lend 65% of our resources through the wholesale lending model and that 5% through the retail lending model. The reason for this is basically it's a de-risking strategy as well as an inclusivity mechanism.
Figure out new ways of developing solutions for the market and to figure out how best to serve the smallholder farmers.
Farmers will also access credit from the lender using their warehousing receipt as collateral.
We are partnering with the Agricultural Finance Corporation to use the warehouse receipt as collateral to give loans to farmers.
Already, the Warehousing Receipt Council has earmarked 11 warehouses that will be integrated into the new AFC financing model. Benson Drioba reporting for Prime Edition.
The government is committed to promoting professional development and empowerment towards a more inclusive and adaptive constructive industry. Lands Cabinet Secretary says women need to step up training and skills for construction to grow percentage of workforce for the women in the industry from the current 3% to the global standard of 15%.
Gender stereotypes, lack of equal opportunities and support systems for women, and exclusive work practices have been cited as major threats hindering the inclusion of women in the construction industry. The number of women joining the construction workforce in Kenya remains low, with players in the sector championing for recognition, promotion, and advancement of the role of women in construction.
And challenging. Just picking the cue from what Waziri has said. You know, things don't just get given. You must go and get them. You must just go there and get them. You must be in our faces. Because I'm telling you, as I said, out of 36 contracts, I don't know how many of them I will be able to sit back and say that these are at least 10 women-led. And here we are talking about women in construction. Just how ironic is that?
Lands Cabinet Secretary Alice Wahome has challenged industry players to promote professional development and empowerment towards a more inclusive and adaptive construction industry.
The women can be part of the affordable housing, building, construction itself, because our tenders are open tenders. So they can be part of the contractors, some of the contractors that will win our tenders. The conversation this morning is how we can educate them, how we can raise their awareness, in terms of how they can access the procurement processes and understand them so that they can win. Obviously, you know, this is a male-dominated space.
Actually see that women have a great potential, but they are not tapping it. We can already see that women are out there very qualified, but simply because we do not have the knowledge of where to find finance, we do not have the knowledge of what we need to do.
Kenya will host the Africa Build Show starting 16th to 18th of next month at the Kenyatta International Convention Center, with a key focus on driving change to address missing gaps for women in construction. Frederick Mwoki for Prime Edition.
The government is committed to forging more public-private partnerships to spur economic growth in Nyanza region. Information, Communication and Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary Eliud Awalo, who was speaking during the engagement forum for local investors, says the leveraging of external networking is in accelerating investments for development.
Kisumu is gearing up to host the inaugural Nyanza International Investment Conference, with the focal point lying in fostering public-private partnerships between investors and local governments to ignite economic growth. Information, Communication and Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary Eliud Awalo says the government is committed to ensure an inclusive nature of development strategies, stressing the importance of leveraging external networks to bolster regional prosperity.
The sources of revenue remain fundamentally the same, but we have undertaken digitalization. We are now today doing 900 million to 1 billion shillings per day, courtesy of digitalization alone. And that is why we are very confident as a government that in the not too distant future, we should be able to leverage on locally generated revenue to facilitate settlement of all our external debt and even have surplus to finance both our recurrent and development expenditure.
Key sectors earmarked for investment include the burgeoning blue economy, underscored by substantial government initiatives such as 3 billion shillings aquaculture centre in Kisumu and modernization projects for fish landing sites along Lake Victoria.
Is investment opportunities which will be taken up by both the local investors and foreign investors, and to see that FDI in Nyanza is increasing in number and value, to see that several joint partnerships and investment deals are concluded with the initial investment plans and through post-investment period after 1 year.
Information, Communication and Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary Eliud Awalo says the government is committed to ensure an inclusive nature of development strategies, stressing the importance of leveraging external networks to bolster regional prosperity.
Game viewing is a key tourist attraction in the Masai Mara National Reserve this June, owing to the cool and pleasant weather pattern. June marks the end of the long rains and onset of a busy tourism season at the reserve. Although the wildebeest herds of the greatest migration have not yet arrived at the reserve from Tanzania, the wildlife at the Masai Mara mostly gets to the savanna grasslands for hunting and relaxation, creating a spectacle to safari travels, as highlighted on tonight's magical scenes.
The month of June remains one of the popular times for safari travel to the Masai Mara National Reserve in Narok County. Owing to a pleasant weather pattern, the dry and warm temperatures are favorable to would-be visitors. Safari game viewing at the reserve during this time is optimal, owing to greater wildlife visibility with less tracking time needed. The long rains have subsided at the Mara, meaning that the flora is less dense and so animals can be easily observed. The Masai Mara National Reserve is home to all members of the Big Five and several other animals and bird species alike. The migratory birds, such as the secretary bird, would arguably get your attention. The pretty bird is large and endemic to Africa. It is mostly terrestrial, spending most of the time on the ground, and is usually found in open grasslands. The reserve is one of the best in East Africa for big cats, smaller predators such as spotted hyena and antelopes, including the impala, redback, Thompson's gazelle, eland, and topi. The buffalo, elephant, and giraffe are mostly relaxed during this season, making it easy for them to be spotted on the savanna grasslands.
In this country, is into the wild. Is this experience very unique? I think it's only in Kenya, in this like national park, national reserve, and in our country, in China, it's really rare we can have this chance to have that experience. So since the first day we came, we are also excited and enjoy this experience.
To get like bushbacks, they come to the camp. They're able to find their way to the camp. You see, even from the banks of the river, we're able to get like eland and of course plenty of monkeys and baboons.
You know, I've been posting every day on Facebook all my experiences, so a lot of my friends have seen all these pictures, and certainly many of them are jealous and say, you know, this is something they want to do as well.
Irene Chuma Udim, Magical Sense at the Masai Mara National Reserve in the county of Narok.
Melia valensky is an indigenous drought-resistant and multi-purpose tree, well known for preventing land degradation as well as reducing the risk of soil erosion. After quitting his banking career, 40-year-old Mike Ngari from Embu County has ventured into the business of selling Melia seedlings to farmers keen on exploiting the many benefits of the tree, locally known as Macau. Take a look.
Melia volcaense, otherwise known as mukau, is endemic to the arid and semi-arid areas of East Africa and is highly valued for its ability to contribute to sustainable land use practices. After quitting his banking job, Mike Ngari decided to settle on large-scale farming of Melia volcaense, where he has established a nursery. A move he says is driven by climate. Melia volcaense, otherwise known as mukau, is endemic to the arid and semi-arid areas of East Africa and is highly valued for its ability to contribute to sustainable land use practices. After quitting his banking job, Mike Ngari decided to settle on large-scale farming of Melia volcaense, where he has established a nursery. A move he says is driven by climate change advocacy.
Kupitia mswada wa serikali, nikajiuliza mimi kama mkulima, kama Mkenya, ni vipi naweza changia kwenye hii mambo ya climate change. Na mimi sasa kwa hayo yote nikajipata nikiwa na nafasi ya kuweza kuweka nursery.
Mukau is among the fastest growing tree species that produce high value timber in rotations of between 10 and 18 years, leaving it as the candidate species of investment in dry lands.
Kuna manufaa ingine binafsi kutengeneza pesa, uchumi na badilika. Kama hii sasa hii kazi tumeweka hapa sisi mwenyewe tumeweza kusaidia Wakenya wengi. Wamepata kazi, wameweza kutengeneza ama kupata mapato kupitia hii ngao, hii project ya Mukau, kwa sababu tumejulisha watu wengi ambao wameweza kutengeneza ama kupata mapato kupitia hii kazi.
Having a propagation span of just 7 days, the mukau seedlings grow to be among the best multi-purpose tree in the area.
Ili uweze kupata manufaa ya hii mti inaitwa mukau, itachukua kutoka mwaka wa 8 mpaka mwaka wa 10, ambayo sasa itaanza kuzaa hizi mbegu zake za green zinaitwa ngao kwa lugha ya Kikwetu. Hizi ngao zilikuwa na manufaa mingi. Mbuzi wanakula, na namba 2 unazitumia zenyewe kutengeneza ama kuzitoa zile mbegu ambazo utaweza pia kuweka kwa nursery, unaweka kwa makaratasi na unauza hizo seedling ama hizo mbegu baada ya miezi 3.
Embu County Conservator Miriam Kamau reveals that farmers use the seeds as fodder for their animals such as goats. Then the mature seeds go through depulping to get the germinating part of the seed.
For the indigenous, how they have been doing it for regeneration, once the mature seeds are fed into the goats and it goes through the lumen of the goats and it's mixed with manure, when the manure is taken to the shamba, it usually germinates naturally.
With an improved variety which matures in a shorter period, farmers can now benefit from sale of seedlings, a move that will foster climate mitigation in the semi-arid area.
The tiba for mukau is a hardwood, resistant to termites, resistant to drought. So now we are talking of climate change and resilience. That is the best tree to speak to.
Lorraine Chepchirchir for Prime Edition.
Asanteni sana kwa kuwezesha Lotomoto kuwafikia wengi wasiojiweza kupitia *570#. Hapa umewafuta wengi machozi, umewaelimisha, umewapa makao, umewapa lishe na umewapa matibabu kwa namna tofauti. Asanteni.
Asanteni. Asanteni sana.
Na kwako wewe mchezaji wa Lotomoto, unajipa fursa ya kujishindia Probox nayo. Na kama Probox haikufai na umejishindia, tunakupa taslim 750,000 Kenyan shillings na mshindi na mtangaza 30th of June. Na mwezi wa July 28th na mtangaza mshindi wa Demio nayo. Na kama utaki na umeshinda, wacha gari, chukua chapa 750,000 Kenyan shillings kwenye *570#. Wewe si mshindi tu, wewe ni tegemeo kubwa. Tusaidie na tushinde.
Kikohozi cha muda wowote, kutokwa na jasho kwa wingi usiku, uchungu kwenye kifua, afya kudhoofika, tafuta matibabu.
Kubali tu kila kitu namwambia na mama, hata hiyo anti yako ufikiri ni gospel truth. What I've gone through unachapitia.
Tulishirikiana na mkachukulia sheria mkononi na mkamshambulia bwana Ondie kinyuka kwota, mkampiga na mkamuumiza.
Mahali wewe ulikuswa ama ulikongwa? Kama ni mimi si mngeniua. Nakuuliza ulikongwa? Pikipiki ni yako? Hapana, ni yako.
Bingwa TB waishi poa.
In 1976, the government of Kenya hatched a plan to construct a major hydroelectric dam at the confluence of Suamri in West Pokot. Until 10 years later, that's when the project started after many controversies. And in 1991, the project was handed over to the government of Kenya by the French contractor. To many, this was a white elephant project, dodged by so many controversies and shrouded in corruption. 31 years later, Turkwel hydroelectric power dam is still standing. And this week on Inside Government, we are talking to the Managing Director of Kerio Valley Development Authority, the managers of this dam. He'll be explaining to us what is the future of this dam, as well as what the dam is doing to improve the socio-economic livelihood of the locals here in West Pokot County.
And the dam is 60 kilometers square, that is massive, covering 2 constituencies, that is Kapenguria and Kacheliba. And I can tell you it's the lifeline of the communities living in this particular region.
Join me this week on Inside Government.
Welcome back. More than 3,000 delegates from around the world are expected to flock to Diani, Kwale County for the inaugural Blue Invest Conference. The government is urging small and medium enterprises and innovators to participate in the upcoming conference. Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs Salim Vuria says the government is looking to ride on the investment in the blue economy initiatives locally to increase revenue to 120 billion per annum from the current 37.6 billion shillings.
Kenya has a maritime territory of 230,000 square kilometers and a distance of 200 nautical miles offshore that teems with marine and natural resources. However, the country is yet to fully optimize these resources for socio-economic development. Stakeholders in the industry say the key to tapping the blue economy resources lies in more investments and innovation.
Various financial needs of the entrepreneurs and the businesses can be well served by the various financial institutions that we have in this country.
The strategic partnership and collaborations from this forum will enhance financing in the blue economy space, build capacities, strengthen skills, and generate ideas for adopting technologies that will offer a comprehensive platform for learning, collaboration, and growth towards a sustainable blue economy.
Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs Cabinet Secretary Salim Vuria says part of the plan has been to map fisheries infrastructure across the country.
We have crab farming, which is a big opportunity. We also have shrimp farming as a big opportunity. And when you come to the inland waters, you have aquaculture as a big opportunity. And therefore, on matters mariculture, what we've decided as government is to create a center of excellence that is going to train and also to mentor mariculture investors.
The European Union ambassador to Kenya, Henriette Geiger, says Blue Invest Conference will provide an opportunity for innovation in science, technology and business development across all sectors of the blue economy.
So the idea is with our grant money, we will create the conditions for investors to come, for small business to grow, for the counties to be able to have their strategy, and then have the ideal conditions for the country itself to take over.
4 Kenyan entrepreneurs are among 29 pre-qualified participants that will be pitching their products and services to investors for funding and African rollout. Regina Manyara reporting for Prime Edition.
Now, we do have an exclusive interview with the CS Salim Vuria and our reporter coming up shortly.
Hello and thank you for watching KBC Channel 1. We would like to have an interactive session on matters the blue economy. And we want to find out how far Kenya's blue economy sector has come, what is being done to ensure that the potential of this sector is achieved, both from a government perspective and development partners perspective. My name is Betty Kiptum. Thank you for joining us. In studio with me, I have Salim Mvuria, who is the Cabinet Secretary in charge of mining, blue economy and maritime affairs. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Betty.
I also have Henriette Geiger, who is the European Union Ambassador to Kenya. Thank you for joining us and welcome to KBC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Asante sana. So maybe a bit of background on the numbers. Blue economy accounts for about 7% of the global GDP. This sector supports 8% of the world's population. This is where they derive their livelihoods. And $161 billion annual revenue generation. In the Kenyan context, it has the potential to generate about 5,000 jobs annually, $4.8 billion to the Kenyan economy annually. This is quite big. I'll start with you, Bwana CS. Where are we currently in terms of tapping our blue economy potential?
Thank you very much, Betty. And first of all, I want to recognize that Kenya, among other countries, has been able to profile blue economy to the level of having a standalone ministry, so that we can have an opportunity to, inspire this sector even much better. So what we've done as a ministry up to now is we've been able to map out the key investment opportunities, both in the Indian Ocean and also in the inland waters. And in this, we've been looking at what is it that we can do as government to create an enabling environment that can inspire investments in the blue economy sector. And when I say blue economy sector, we are not just talking about fisheries, but we are talking about, we are looking at the other components, the other components to do with shipping, the components to do with renewable energy, the components to do with beach tourism, and of course fisheries, and also in terms of infrastructure. So we've been able to look at what is the potential for Kenya, for example, in the Indian Ocean, and what is the potential for Kenya in the lake waters, to inspire this sector. And in that respect, we have been able to draft a national blue economy strategy that puts together guidelines that are going to be very useful to propel this sector in the future. And maybe as we discuss, I will also give you specifics on the areas that we have been able to map out, and the resources that government has allocated to inspire the investment in those sectors.
Definitely, we shall be getting those details in just a little bit. Let me bring Ambassador Geiger to the conversation. What do you think is the role of maybe development partners in harnessing this sector, considering how much investment it needs?
So as investment partners and development partners, the EU is of course only one of the several here in Kenya. But we have been big in the blue space because we are convinced that there's no green without blue. So you need basically a green blue to harness the full potential of the Kenyan economy. And we have seen that Kenya has so much potential in the blue space that is still unexploited. So early on, we have started to develop together with the CS, the Blue Economy Strategy. So the EU has supported this because we think that it's the government's responsibility to create the enabling environment. And with the enabling environment, then you can attract investment, but you have to create the framework, the base conditions, both for blue economy around the ocean, but also inland waters, which is very important. So the EU has worked as a development partner with grants in the counties bordering the Indian Ocean here in Kenya. And the idea was to develop that space in an integrated way, looking at maritime resources, but also on land resources and connecting them. So economic development, environmental protection, tourism development, and we even integrated Taita Taveta, which is not on the sea, as part of this integrated approach. So our idea is then here also to have the enabling environment on the coast together with the national framework, the policy framework, then have the best conditions for having the investment. And the EU is of course aware that grants are not sufficient. That's why we're increasingly working in a combination of grants and loans, so that the grants can enable loan and investment packages. And last year with the CS, we went with all the EU ambassadors to the coast to draw awareness of the entire nation to the potential that the blue economy has. And we have this project called Go Blue of the EU with several member states, and in trying to build that enabling environment. Right. And the next logical event is that we're together with the CS Blue Economy having an international Africa-wide investors conference in the blue space.
Right. Just hold on to that. I will come to you to give us more details on, on that particular conference. Bwana CS, I want to throw it back to you. She has mentioned the policy framework that has to be there, established by the national government. Of course, we know that this is already in place. Yeah. Now, what are the actual projects that are going on in the blue economy sector from your end?
Okay, what we've done, first of all, before I go into other specifics, I want to say that we have been having a collaborative effort in the Go Blue project, which has been an integrated project in terms of, capacity building for youth, but also looking at specific support to fishermen. And also even tapping into local universities in the coast. In addition to that, we have mapped out the region, for example, the Indian Ocean, because if you look at the sector of fisheries, for example, fisheries is still very traditional, very traditional in terms of equipment, but also very traditional in terms of low investments. So one of the areas that we have been addressing in fisheries, for example, is to ensure that we empower fishermen so that they can delay sales. Because in fish, delaying sales is very, very critical for bargaining purposes. So we have mapped out the entire region all the way from Lamu to Kwale. And we are going to be spending 1.4 billion to build landing infrastructure. That is going for a model landing infrastructure. Will have a cold room, it will have an ice making facility, it will have also an area for basic value addition, and it will have an area also for storage. So we've done a mapping, all the way from Mokoe. We are going to do a landing site in Mokoe. We are also going to do a landing site in Kipini, which is in Tana River. We've already done landing sites, 2 in Kilifi, Ngomeni and Kichwa Chakati, and we are also doing Kilifi Central. We are doing Kidongo in Mombasa. We are also doing Moepe, Gazi, and Vanga in Kwale. Those are landing sites basically to support fishermen so that when they land their fish, then they are able now to get cold storage. Secondly, we have also looked at other opportunities. For example, in Shimoni, we have an opportunity for fish port and fish processing. So the government is putting in a 2.6 billion investment for fish processing, which later will be with a PPP, a private sector to run it. We are also doing Liwatoni. Liwatoni is basically also a fishing hub, a processing place, and in fact we've just advertised to get a private sector who can work with government on Liwatoni. We have also looked at other areas, you know, apart from the Indian Ocean. We've looked at Lake Victoria, all the way from Busia to Migori, on the same issue of infrastructure. And in Busia, we've just concluded Bumbe landing site, but we will also, we've done Mulukoba, so we are doing Bumbe. Okay. Then in Siaya, we've concluded Luanda Kotieno. We will do Wichlum. We'll do also Asembo Bay. In Kisumu, we do Asat and Ogal. Then in Homa Bay, we are doing Mainuga, Nyandhiwa, and Wakula. Migori, we've concluded Sori, but we are doing God Kochola. We are equally spending 1.4 billion in the Lake region. We are also doing Kalokol in Lake Turkana. We are also doing a landing site there. On one side of the lake in Turkana County, but also in Marsabit, which is also within Lake Turkana. We are doing one in Baringo at Kampia Samaki, and also in Lake Naivasha. So that's the part of landing infrastructure. But you know also fisheries has another component. In the ocean, we have mariculture. In the inland waters, we have aquaculture. So on matters aquaculture, we want to propel Kenya, you know, to the international level. So we are working on a center of excellence in Kabonyo, Kanyagwal, and we are working with the government of Hungary to have a training center, a center of excellence, which should be costing us $1 billion. Then we also have Sagana, which we are concluding for the Mount Kenya region, as well as Kiganjo. You know, these three centers now will be profiling our country on matters aquaculture. But now in the coast region, we have mariculture, which is seaweed, crab farming, oyster farming, shrimp farming, which is also a very lucrative investment, especially around Ungwana Bay. Ungwana Bay is this place between Malindi and Kipini. That stretch provides a special habitat, you know, for fish breeding. And we have several of those in the Indian Ocean that we have identified, which we also be looking at in terms of profiling. So on mariculture, we are doing a center for mariculture, which we are doing in Shimoni at a cost of around 800 million, which is already on the ground. And we are doing this because seaweed farming, for example, is very lucrative. Currently, I think in East Africa, Zanzibar is way ahead of us. And we are looking forward also to provide a platform for Kenya to also invest in seaweed farming.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Bwana CS, I would like to get your thoughts on conservation efforts, especially for this sector. But also in there, I'd like you to answer the question on developing value chains.
Okay.
Ensuring that the fish that we produce here can actually meet the standards in those markets, because we've seen in other value chains our shipments being, you know, stopped from entering those markets. How do we make sure our farmers are meeting the standards?
Yeah, first of all, I want to agree with the ambassador that the issue of climate change is real. And even though in other sectors they may not see it, but in blue economy we have witnessed this. This entire discussion on Hidaya cyclone is part of that, and it has affected greatly fisheries activities. And marine activities in general, because you see, like that time, even though Kenya was not hit by the cyclone, we had a very big impact. We saw that boats moved from all the way from Zanzibar to Kipini, you know, and you know fishermen had to be rescued. Then we have rising waters. You know, recently we also had rising waters in the ocean around Mutwapa. We have rising waters in Lake Victoria. We have rising waters in Naivasha, Baringo. Turkana, the last time I was there was a lot of flooding, which, you know, no rain, but it's flooding. Just now, we also have a situation in Lake Jipe. It is drying, you know, the catchment has changed course. So we have quite a number of those issues. And the presidential rallying call for 15 billion trees. We are also doing mangrove, in the Indian Ocean. It is part of what we are doing, because we also need to have conservation efforts that are going to, improve the Indian Ocean. So we are doing mangrove. In fact, I was in Kipini last week on the same program, just also to restore, the Indian Ocean. Apart from that, we have other efforts with Nyamai, especially on the area of plastics. We have a whole campaign to ensure that we address this matter. So it is real, and we are taking action. The other part of the question was
the value chains, building of
value chains.
Yes. Yeah.
Actually, the reason we are doing landing infrastructure is because we would want to provide space for the first point for value addition, because the landing infrastructure will provide an area for processing, cleaning, and then we link to the market. We banned the importation of tilapia, for example, because we know the country has capacity. We have a number of processors here in Nairobi that we have linked, to standards, so that they conform to the standards of the EU and other markets. Currently, we are working on an investor in Kakamega who wants to export to the EU, and we are looking at, the standards. So what we have encouraged the investors is basically also, if you want to export, then you need to know the kind of standards that are required. And already we have some of them who are exporting to America and also the EU. So that is what we want to encourage, and that is why we want the Blue Invest conference, which is coming up on the 3rd and 4th of July, we look at it as an opportunity, to bring in the global investors who will not just be speaking, but they will have an interface, with the local teams here, so that even as they partner in investments, the issue of standards becomes key. And we have also done this in our regulations. We have 8 regulations that we have done. And part of the regulations, there addresses the issue of standards. Yeah.
Since you've brought up the conference bit of it, I think let's just have that conversation now. This Blue Invest conference that is happening next month, early next month, what do you hope to achieve? I'll start with you, Ambassador. What do you hope to achieve, and specifically, how can we make those conversations go beyond just talk and papers to implementation? Yeah.
Thank God it's not a conference that is a talk shop. It's a conference that is a matchmaking, a speed dating. So it brings together people who pitch with their business idea or their small business, and the investors are there to listen and to pitch for making investments in that or in another business. So the idea is to bring together, but not only Kenyan businesses and investors, but this is thought for the whole of Africa. The whole of Africa, and bringing in investors from Europe, but also from other parts of Africa together here. So it's enabling investment in the blue space. And many of the companies invited have very innovative ideas. It's not only about fishing, it's all kinds of businesses in the blue space. And we have already signals that investors are very interested in that. So hopefully we'll get very concrete deals out of it. And not only for Kenya, but across Africa. We have participants from other countries, many of them. And then, of course, on top of it, we want to give a signal about the importance of the blue space for the economy of Africa. So the EU has been doing a similar conference on the Seychelles, also for Africa. And the EU is very grateful that Kenya has now agreed to host this new one. Because it's one thing to do this conference on an island, and it's the other thing to do it on mainland Africa. So that's why we have very high hopes that this will give us an incredible traction and push in the blue investment space.
Right. I am informed we have about 2 minutes to wind up, so I'll give each of you 1 minute to give us your closing remarks. What is the way forward for blue economy in Kenya, Bwana CS?
Okay, and unfortunately the 2 minutes is...
I really wish we had more. There's a lot to discuss.
Because you see the issues, the way forward, first of all, we are very excited about the conference because, you know, you talked about standards and opportunities. The blue economy is not just, you know, the small things we have said here. We have the entire area of maritime because 90% of international trade happens in the ocean. So when you talk about standards, we're also looking at how do we prepare Kenyans, you know, to have standards that can be accepted internationally. And that is why within Blue Economy, we have this program on seafarers. Kenya now has been elected to be in the IMO category C. So Kenya's profile already is very high, and therefore part of the standards that we are doing is to make sure that we domesticate the IMO regulations in our country so that we can still meet the threshold of being a maritime country, that we'll have vessels, we'll have ships plying the trade within the ocean. And part of the standards that we are doing as a way forward now is to make sure that we upgrade Bandari Maritime Academy to be a center of excellence for maritime affairs. And we are doing a 2.4 billion project for survival and training to upgrade, you know, to make sure that it meets the international standards. So I think the standards we talked about earlier were fisheries, but you know we have now much more than that. So the way forward is to ensure that we continue with this trajectory. We continue working with our development partners, but we also continue to profile blue economy as a key pillar of the country's investment. So in that conference, we also expect that we will have investors, for example, in small ports, investors, you know, in different matters. Right now, Kenya, we are working towards a situation where we can do vessel building. I'm sure you already know that we have done some 2 vessels, MV Uhuru 1 and 2 in Kisumu. But now we are looking at boats. You know, the boats we don't have to buy from outside, so we are working with the shipyard. And we already have test boats that they have done. And in the future, then we should be making the boats here in Kenya.
We look forward to launching one into the ocean. Right. Madam Ambassador, please.
I just hope that the support of the EU will help catapult Kenya into a green-blue economy. And this cannot be achieved with grants, and it cannot be achieved from the outside. It can only be achieved by all the actors here in Kenya being aware of the potential and bringing investment in that space. And Kenya has so many young and energetic and talented people that can creatively use the potential when the enabling environment is there. So I have full confidence that we're growing into that space, and I think Kenya can become a superpower in the blue space.
Awesome. Kenya can become a superpower. I like that, in the blue economy space. And of course, as you said, there is no green without blue. I love that. I guess that is a great way to end the conversation. Remember, we have been talking about matters blue economy, and my guest, Henriette Geiger, who is the European Union Ambassador to Kenya, as well as Salim Mvurya, the Cabinet Secretary for Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs. Of course, the Blue Invest Africa Conference will be taking place on the 3rd and 4th of July in Diani, that is just in a few days. Be sure to join those conversations, and we shall be bringing you up to speed on exactly what is happening in that conference. My name is Betty Kiptum. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.
This World Blood Donor Day, join us in celebrating 20 years of giving. Thanks to blood donors, I'm here today. Your donations gave me a second chance.
I want you to tell me if you're bothered about something, if you are hurting. I want to be a part of everything that you do here in the Red.
Boy.
Hey, is that you? He's cute.
I stayed away for a long time that I didn't even know that Zenaida already had a young son. We are talking here, so please go.
Sports News is brought to you by Mozart Bet.
Good evening to you. My name is Daniel Ohome and welcome to Prime Edition Sports. And the National Women's Beach Volleyball Team duo of Gaudentia Makoha and Naomi To began their final quest for an Olympic Games qualification on a winning note after beating Gambia by 2-0 of 21-9 and 21-16 during the CAVB Women's Beach Continental Cup final in Marseille, Morocco. The team will hope to prevail over Nigeria in their second group match. In other women's matches, Cape Verde beat Nigeria 2-0, while Cameroon lost to Ghana with a similar score. Meanwhile, the Kenya men's volleyball team of Brian Melly and Edward Kibet was unlucky in their opening match after losing 2-0 to Mauritius. The Kenyan team lost the first set 21-16, and despite putting up a spirited fight in the second set, they were unable to overturn the deficit, losing 21-16 to their more agile opponents. The Kenyan men hope to bounce back in their remaining matches against Cameroon, Togo and Botswana in Group D. The winners of the tournament will qualify for the Paris Olympic Games. The national under-20 men's rugby team head coach Simon Jawi Chire has retained a bulk of the players that won the Bates Trophy in the squad that will participate in the forthcoming World Rugby Junior Trophy scheduled for the 2nd to the 17th of July in Edinburgh, Scotland. And Sports Cabinet Secretary Ababu Namwamba has reiterated the government's efforts to tap, nurture and develop talent from all disciplines across the country in line with the bottom-up economic and transformation agenda. He was speaking during a ceremony to award the winners of a Team Kenya ceremonial dress to the Paris Olympic Games.
It was the first time that the Kenyans had been given an opportunity to come up with creative ideas for the Kenya ceremonial and casual sports attire to the 2024 Olympic Games, which will be unveiled at a later date to the public.
We are very confident that by the time the team steps out on 26th of July, they'll be able to look the part. They'll be able to represent the magical aspects of Team Kenya. They'll be able to say, as the Kenya House team is running, they'll be able to represent the notion of Karibuni Nyumbani.
Rosemary Runyenje was declared the winner of the opening ceremonial dress and walked away with a check of 300,000 Kenya shillings. Rosemary was also the second runners-up in casual wear and was awarded a check of 100,000 Kenya shillings, while Georgia Fernandez walked away with two checks of 300,000 Kenya shillings each for winning his design for the closing and the casual wear ceremonies.
His Excellency the President will also be doing a special ceremony to release these products formally and to send them into commercial production.
Vincent Okumwe emerged first runners-up in both categories and was awarded two checks of 200,000 shillings.
Kenya is in a good space as we move to Paris for these Olympics. I can confirm that we have prepared well. I can confirm that as government, we have provided the support needed.
The ceremony was graced by the President of the National Olympic Committee of Kenya, Dr. Paul Tergat, and the NOC executive, who thanked the government for their relentless efforts in supporting sports in the country.
We are working all together to make sure, as this at least don this uniform, it is the pride of each and every one of us as a nation. And we appreciate your gift of talent that you have shown to us.
For Prime Edition Sports, I'm Daniel Mwendwa.
And the Kenya women's goalball team beat Pakistan by 9-7 in an international friendly match for the visually impaired played in Thika. The Kenyan side took charge of the game from the onset, dominating the early minutes as the visitors fought back to lose out narrowly in the game of tactics. It was the first time that the Pakistani women's team were playing outside their home country, with the friendly match expected to foster international relations between the two countries. The Kenyan team captain, Evelyn Kalunda, expressed confidence in her team's abilities to scale greater heights if they are given full support to develop their skill.
Yenyewe inakuanga ni tricky cause when you go to a hall like hapa hivi tuna have kurent ndo tukuje tufanye nini, tufanye training, so inamaanisha in an instance whereby hatuna pesa, hata training yenyewe atufanye nini, atufanye.
The Kenyan players are very good if the game is not very much known in this country, but they played very well.
And the stakes are high as the battle for the final Rugby Sevens Olympic Games tickets kicks off tomorrow at the World Rugby Sevens Repechage tournament in Morocco, with Kenya Lioness hoping to book their ticket to the upcoming games in Paris. The Kenya Lioness will be up against Argentina, Papua New Guinea and Samoa in Pule, with their first match against Papua New Guinea tomorrow evening. Neighbours Uganda will also be taking part in the Sevens Repechage for the 2024 Olympic Games, where they are pulled together with Hong Kong, Jamaica and Paraguay, while Pool C comprises debutants Czechia, China, Mexico and Poland. The winners of the repechage finals, involving 12 women's and men's teams, will join the other qualifiers in the Paris Olympic Games, which includes Kenya's men's sevens team, Shujaa.
The team is very motivated. Now we have new players who are looking forward to go play to the for the Olympics, so they're looking forward to it.
And so Kenya Lioness, they play their first game at 5:20 p.m. tomorrow. And just a quick update on Euro 2024. 2 matches played so far. Slovenia played against Serbia. It ended 1-1. England played against Denmark. It's 1-1. And at the moment, Spain versus Italy. That's a classic that everyone would love to watch. My name is Daniel Wahome. Have a good evening and see you tomorrow. Back to you, Cynthia.
Sports News was brought to you by Mozart Bet.
You can lift the plane. The higher you fly, the higher your win. The sky is the limit. Mozart Bet.
Well, that marks the end of tonight's bulletin. From me and the rest of the team, we do want to wish you a very good night.
Watch the Mozartbet Cup as teams from both the top tier and lower tier battle for the ultimate prize of representing the country in Africa's CAF Confederations Cup. Catch all the action live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1, beginning with a round of 16 matches, the quarter-final, semi-final, and the final. Mozartbet Cup, live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
Countries across the world are currently grappling with climate change, a situation that has greatly contributed to frequent and severe droughts in Kenya, negatively affecting livelihoods, ecosystems, and the economy. As a way of mitigating this challenge, the government of Kenya has continued to implement drought resilience and climate adaptation measures to reduce vulnerability and exposure. The National Drought Management Authority, NDMA, is mandated to coordinate the management of drought risk in the country with the view to preventing their slide into emergencies.
Maji ni uhai, maji ni hai.